Shots are fired. Some Soviets are dead. Defiance continues. I'm Dan Lewis.
And I'm Carrie Brock. The overthrow of the Soviet government has turned violent. Confrontations between tanks and citizens on the streets of Moscow. Members of the new government thrown out.
More Soviets leave a ship in Seattle. They're seeking asylum here.
Despite warnings and now violence, many locals are going there anyway.
Those stories and much more next.
You're watching KOMO-TV4 in Seattle. Live from Seattle, this is KOMO News 4.
Good evening. There is one thing that leads the Soviet Union tonight: chaos and confusion.
It is close to daylight now in Moscow. Shots have been fired. At least 3 people have died outside the Russian parliament building where Boris Yeltsin is struggling to lead his reformers against the coup. These are the latest scenes. Soviet tanks trying to break down the barricades erected by Yeltsin's reformers. An ABC radio reporter tells KOMO News he was slightly injured in the conflict.
Apparently, the tanks ran over at least 2 people, and 1 or 2 others have been killed, including probably 1 soldier who was beaten to death by bystanders.
The dark streets of Moscow are teeming with people despite the curfew imposed by coup leaders. Earlier, a massive crowd cheered Yeltsin in front of Parliament, and he told them democracy would win. But as the tight security around him shows, reformers fear they will lose all hope of democracy without Yeltsin. There is hope the coup has lost some of its steam. There are unconfirmed reports that 3 of the 8 coup leaders are out, including the head of the KGB, the prime minister, and the defense minister. However, the Soviet crackdown seems to continue at this hour. Latvia now says the prime minister of Latvia was arrested not long ago when Red Army tanks stormed the ministry council and told Latvian defense troops to lay down their weapons or be killed.
To find out the very latest now, we have foreign journalist Gerard Langrano on the telephone live in Moscow. Gerard, we have just seen the violence that filled the night in the Soviet Union. Have things completely calmed down now? What's happening right now?
From what I see in my office, where we can actually see the Russian Supreme Soviet building from here, everything is quiet. There are no lights on the building except for one tiny light on the facade. One wonders whose office it is. But things are very quiet now. You can just hear the sound of cars driving down the streets despite the curfew, but all is quiet.
There seems to be a great deal of fear, certainly among the reformers, Gerard, that when daylight hits, perhaps that's when the Kremlin will strike in full force. Do you get that feeling?
My personal view is if they were to have done that, they should have done that much earlier on. They should have done that 2 or 3 hours ago. Daylight, the curfew, don't forget, will be over very shortly. People will be able to go out on the streets. It will be more difficult for them to do that during daylight, really.
Gerard Langrano talking to us live from Moscow. Thank you very much.
As many as 7 Soviet visitors to Seattle are expected to request asylum here in the United States, certainly the result of all the turmoil in the Soviet Union. As KOMO's John Larson reports, all 7 were aboard the Soviet ship Akademik Shirshov.